That's right.
There it is.
When you hear the howl, we're ready to prowl. Welcome to the Mindful Warrior, episode number 28. It's April 19th, 2018. My name's Nathan Jackson, here with Eben Britton. What's up, man?
Hey, my brother.
How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Good to see
good.
you. With here, as always, is Gerard Bauer, not on the mic, but he's on the keys. Oh.
Yes.
Very nice. And as always, Gandalf the Grey, not sleeping yet, actually sniffing at the door, stretching now. And we got a very special guest today. You want to introduce him, Eb?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Cool.
Oprah. Oprah's here.
Oh, wow.
She's in the room.
Oprah.
Oprah's balls have dropped.
Finally.
Wow.
We've got a dude that I have a lot of respect for this guy. His name is Aaron Alexander, host of the Align podcast, also a Rolfer and movement coach. Aaron, great to have you here, man.
Thanks so much, brother.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
awesome. It's great to have you. So you have a lot of
I want to jump in because
Go ahead.
I want you to explain what Rolfing is. There's a lot of people out there, our listeners, former athletes, whoever, I don't know who's listening,
Yep.
but I didn't know what Rolfing was until I looked it up in advance of this podcast. So before you get into
That's a great place
your
to
more
start.
pointed questions,
Yeah.
could you explain what Rolfing is?
It's closely associated to LARPing, live action role playing. And
Wow.
yeah, it's like a hybrid of that and mud wrestling.
Okay.
So it's a
Get the
different,
fuck
it's a bit of a
outta
different.
here.
All right. And you get paid for this.
No, not really. I pay people actually to let me.
You come into their home.
Yeah. Please. Rolfing. Ida P. Rolf. She was the founder of Rolfing. Sweet, not so sweet. She was kind of a curmudgeon-y German lady, actually. She's dead now, died in 1987. She called it structural integration, and essentially the easiest way to like layman describe it, instead of that like an Irish accent describe it, is
Layman describe it.
is like physical therapy meets manual therapy. People probably don't know what manual therapy is either, so you call that massage therapy, and just keep on dumbing it down as you go. But essentially, it's using your hands or your elbows to align someone's physical structure. So starting balancing their foot to the knee, to the pelvis, up to the top of the head. If you can create that connection, then all of a sudden we have electricity moving through the system. If that connection isn't there, then life isn't as easy.
How does that differ from normal massage?
Normal massage, when I hear the word massage, I think of whale sounds and effleurage, which is a technique, and like rubbing and kind of like, you know, ideally maybe happy ending or whatever direction it goes. I think I like body work better, or manual therapy, because we're really intention driven as we're working here. So we're really looking to align and stack your physical body, as opposed to kind of taking a system that's already disorganized and just kind of relaxing that disorganization. We're looking to figure out what's the root of that disorganization. How can we kind of shimmy that around?
And how do you determine what the root is?
Man, experience, intuition, conversations, different types of like functional movement type tests, watching somebody walk, watching somebody breathe, watching somebody squat. It's like when we're communicating to each other, we don't really give that many shits about what we're saying. We care more about how we communicate it, our body language, the tonality. So you gather a lot from just watching a person walk into a room.
Right on.
So one of the descriptions, maybe this was Ida's idea, but it's matching the body's energy field with Earth's gravitational field. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that's quite fine. So matching, I don't know that I would necessarily, I wouldn't disagree with anything that Ida would say, but yeah, finding equilibrium.
Okay.
That would be sensible. So think of it as like if you were to place I'm looking for something long, say a straw. All right, so if you place a straw, it's probably a terrible analogy, but you place a straw on the ground and you push straight through it and you center it, you find balance with that, you can push pretty decent weight down through that straw. The second that you put that straw at an angle, all of a sudden you can't push very much weight before it cracks and breaks. And so in our physical body, it's the same thing. That straw analogy, which is a terrible analogy, you could say that's the same connection from your ankle joint, right? Or your knee, or your pelvic floor, respiratory diaphragm, all these different levels of your physical body. If any one of those parts are off balanced, then you end up collapsing that straw. Straw's a terrible analogy. I apologize for that.
No, it's not a bad analogy, and it's applicable to football players, especially because football players are always leaning forward. Everything is attacking at an angle, and so when we're done playing, we got to find a way to stand back up straight. And a lot of guys have problems in their joints and their hips and their back because we're so used to bending over. I mean, before every play starts, we're on the ground, bent over. And you see these old football players walking around, these old-timey guys, and they're hunched over, and they're limping, and they need some Rolf.
Yeah, well, it doesn't necessarily need to be Rolfing. It could be they need some Olympic weightlifting. They need some yoga. They need some, any...
Olympic weightlifting is what got them in that predicament, isn't it? I mean, are you talking about cleans and jerks and things of that nature?
So if you're lifting weight up over your head, like a snatch type position, and you're able to cleanly distribute that weight all the way down from your hands down into your feet, create a great hip hinge, long neutral spine, then that's medicine. It's stacking those joints if you're doing it well.
Right.
The thing is, such a small percentage of people in the world in almost any practice are kind of actually getting to the root of that practice and doing it well. Most times you go to a yoga class, it's like stretchy sweat class. And then there's maybe like one, old chick in the back that's like actually working to connect her joints. I find recently I was doing a class with a guy, and he had what I perceived to be the most like potent yoga that I've seen. I was like, this guy's a badass. Like he's reading out of the the Vedas, and he's his every movement he has is great. He's like really grounded with what he's communicating. And so I talked to him after class. I was like, dude, like you got a good thing going. What's happening? And he gets into his background. He's like, oh, I used to be a Muay Thai fighter, and then I was a jiu-jitsu fighter, and then I was like a fireman, and then I discovered yoga. So he had this balance of that yin and yang, not one that's excessively either direction. If we can find that balance, then we're really getting at something.
Well, that's one thing that, football players really struggle with is the specialization of our movements. Every day we're coming out and we're working the same thing. Playing right tackle, I'm going and getting into the same stance, 100, 200 times a day and moving out of that one particular stance.
And it's always lopsided.
Nathan, as a receiver, a tight end, he talks about a lot of inline running, leads to a lot of groin pulls, a lot of hamstring pulls. And that really is something I feel like you are very aware of, especially following your Instagram, is, dynamic movements, sort of unconventional ways of training the body, which I really appreciate. Talk a little bit about that and why that's so important for anyone really in general.
Yeah. Well, so repetitive stress is the thing that really injures us. So it doesn't matter what the heck it is. Like the body wants to explore, it wants to adapt. That's why cold temperatures are so beneficial for us. All of a sudden you start creating these cold shock proteins, and your body increases natural killer cells, and shake a stick at like anything that's, upregulating you, put yourself in a cold room, that starts to happen. Same thing happens when you put yourself in a hot room. It's just this room temperature. It's just our bodies get bored.
Could that be one of the reasons why people in LA are not? LA, the weather is always the same. Do you think have any effect on people's bodies and their ability to heal?
LA weather's not always the same. It gets cold at night. It gets hot as fuck during the day. I mean,
it's
down
sunny,
here, your body has to deal with the sun.
You live in Santa Monica. That's a 20-degree, swing.
Yeah,
pretty much.
But it's still something. Like I
and
came
so
in
that's
here.
enough.
I came in
is
here
that what
wearing
you're saying?
Yeah. I came in here wearing a sweatshirt. I could have been shirtless. Like you have that. We just protect ourselves. We try to keep ourselves at that equilibrium point all the time. But the real health is in that adaptation range. So we can choose, like, take your fucking sweatshirt off, turn your air conditioning off in your car, get out in the sun, expose yourself to a little bit of sun, maybe take on even a little bit of like sun damage in quotations, because then your body ends up upregulating, bring blood to that surface of the skin and actually repairing the skin. I'm not saying go get a sunburn, but I'm saying experience the sun.
Yeah.
When all you're doing all day is bicep curls and squats or whatever, there's no panacea perfect lift.
Right.
Every one, your body will get bored.
Yeah.
And then another part of the conversation is every lift is a brand new lift. That's like a Aikido type concept idea. Morihei Ueshiba, he said to his students, they were pissed off because they're doing the same position over and over again. And it's like, you idiots, once you realize that every position is completely brand new, you'll finally be practicing Aikido.
What do you
there's
mean by
a lot
that?
of ways to look at it.
What do you
Yeah.
mean every position is brand new if you're doing the same thing?
Well, you never put your, sorry for getting all like Confucius-y, but you never put your hand in the same river twice, right? Because it's a different river and you have a different hand. We're always this moving. Yeah, exactly.
I love
Thank
it,
you.
dude.
That's
No,
what
I
we
love
needed.
that.
Thank
Yeah.
you for lighting that up. I
Yeah.
apologize in advance.
No, that was awesome.
I lean
dude.
towards
That's
Confucius-esque.
a accompaniment, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. That's what we're
No,
looking for.
you gotta lighten it up. So that was perfect. But yeah, so every time you go through that physical position, it's not just that at like a cellular level you're a different person, which you are, but it's also that movement is subtly different. Right. So your foot, I don't remember the exact number. I think there's 33 different bones in the foot and 50 odd different joints in the foot. Like you have literally zillions of different potential ranges of motions throughout your feet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that, any subtle change, it's like jujitsu. It's like it's like a physical chess game. Any subtle change throughout your physical structure ends up creating another one of these zillion potential patterns. There's no such thing as just, I did the same squat again. You change the angle of your pelvis half a centimeter, your whole body adapts to this new position. I'm kind of going against what I was saying before, actually, but that's the nature. I'll keep doing that, I'm sure.
In what way? No, in what way are you going against it?
Well, before I was saying your body wants to adapt and explore different ranges of motion.
Yeah.
And then I'm also saying, in reality, every motion is a new range of motion.
Sure.
But both are right.
Yeah.
Well-
I agree. No, I agree.
And part of the reason why athletes get hurt so much, in my opinion, football players in particular, is because they train in these very uniform. They do the exact same thing every day. And although, like you said, you never do the same thing twice, they're doing it very similarly in a way that doesn't prepare them for the movement that happens on the field, which is more subjective. So if someone's coming at me here and I got to pivot really quick and hit him this way with a torquing torso at the same time, there it goes, because I've never practiced doing these movements simultaneously.
Yeah.
So are you a proponent of kind of like multi-plane training? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
How would you describe that?
So first, the baseline is finding that like linearity has a lot of value. So figuring out just like that sagittal plane going, forward this direction. My hands are waving forward like I'm like waving a plane in or a bus in.
Yeah.
That position, it's kind of like classical ballet. You can start off and figure, okay, do I have a good strong hip hinge? Can I create neutrality through my spine?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have a history in ballet. You're a trained ballet dancer.
I'm a trained, pretty like poor ballet dancer.
But
yeah.
okay, but you know what you're talking about when you
We have some
reference
background
ballet.
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just helping our listeners at home. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with that, having that just simplifying things down first. And then from there you start to build in a little bit more complexity. But what happens too often with people is they end up doing the Taibo class or the CrossFit or whatever. CrossFit's a lot of sagittal stuff actually. But they end up adding complexity onto the system before they figured out simplicity. So starting off just figuring out if you do a squat and you come down and you have, 50 pounds in your shoulders, whatever, you're sitting in a chair, do you end up folding your lumbar, your lower? How the people that listen to this, do they pay attention to like anatomy and stuff like that? What kind of language?
Some
do they use?
may, yeah, for sure.
Right.
We go
Your lower
in depth.
back.
Yeah.
So if you're coming forward as you go into that squat position, you bend forward, flex your lower back. You're putting all of those vertebra and those discs in a disadvantageous position, kind of creating like a disc herniation.
Yeah.
So starting off first, like, okay, can I just hip hinge? We don't need to get into multiplanar and spiral mechanics. And it's like, how's your sit? Do you sit well? When you sit down, do you sit on the front edge of your sit bones? Or do you always fold forward and kind of into this like defeated type, folded, depressed position?
Right.
From there, that creates kind of like, that's like the base layer of the house. You need to have a good, strong base layer. From there, okay, now let's add some spiral into it because you figured out ground floor. But too often we just throw shit at the wall. We never actually figure out creating a foundation. That was a pretty like nebulous way of describing things.
No, it was accurate. So describe what do you mean by spiraling?
Well, also twisting.
Yeah.
So from that position, you're not going to just life is bigger than just squatting and hip hinging and neutral spine. Life needs to come alive at some point. So from there, I think exploring different spiral type patterns. So any type of twist, like swinging an axe, right? So coming across, which you could get like a cable and kind of swing down across your body there.
Yeah.
But still maintaining that awareness of if I dump my spine forward, right, or too far either direction, and I add that torsion to it, now I'm in trouble. Right.
Yeah.
So now if you add torsion to a system, now you're putting more pressure into it than you could have had you not added that torsion. So if you take a system that's already compromised and then you twist it, you're screwed. It's going to be a real problem.
Right.
Yeah. And we've seen that happen a million times on a football field or any kind of sport.
That's
Yeah.
when people get disc herniation. They get disc
Absolutely.
herniation when they're picking up a feather off the ground.
Right.
And they just twist their body a little bit. It's usually a twist. You bend over, you flex your lower spine. That puts that stress on the lumbar discs, and then you twist, and then pow, you have an issue. But it's not because you picked up the feather wrong. It's because you've been repeating that pattern thousands of times. So if you can rewind your history a little bit and come back to a point of like, okay, maybe if every moment I kind of have that awareness of hinging my hips, creating some integrity through my midsection, as I pick up anything throughout the day, now I start digging another path. But it's all, every moment is a flipping opportunity to make your body work better. That's the big thing. Every moment. You're always fitnessing.
Right.
It never stops.
Yeah, something you said in one of your podcasts was that nature is like the gym. Nature is our original gym. Like being just outdoors is like is a fitness arena in itself.
Yeah,
And many people don't really, you think of this, we've compartmentalized so much of our lives that even our activity and our health, we put it in a gym.
Yeah.
We have to go to the gym to, get on the Stairmaster or the elliptical, and then we lift weights and we do all that. But I think if people really were more mindful, more aware of their physical body and space, just from moment to moment, pulling your belly button to the spine and keeping a strong core throughout your day when you're just sitting at the desk, that can do wonders for you, for your back health.
And nature also does, so there's like a thing called Shinrin-yoku, which is an unnecessary Japanese term meaning nature bathing.
Okay.
And so the Japanese folks, they do all the fun studies. One of the things they got into is the effect of just being outside. So it's not, outside isn't just, it's not just like this vacuum, like I'm inside, I'm outside. Outside's big. You're always being exposed, and inside's big as well in both conversations, but you're always being exposed to the plants, the chemicals that are coming off of the plants.
Right.
These chemicals coming off the plants, they call them phytoncides.
Terpenes and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. Terpenes, phytoncides, all that.
Yeah.
Right? Your body's assimilating all of that information, right? It ends up boosting your immune system. It ends up kind of like you're creating antibodies to any of the bacteria and the pathogens that go into your system. You want to expose yourself to this diversity. It's the same adaptation conversation. And then with that, it's like, okay, interesting. So sun connecting with my skin, that's almost like movement. Right, the mitochondria in my cells can interpret that or assimilate that energy from the sun into ATP, which is like the energy
Muscle
currency
energy,
throughout our body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adenosine triphosphate, no big deal. So that's a movement.
Yeah.
Right, that sun hitting your skin, that's movement. Your body interprets that information. It brings blood to the skin. Right. Same thing when you look out into the distance. That's a movement. So that's a muscular pattern. When you look out into the distance, your ciliary muscles, which are the muscles around the lens of your eye, they relax because they don't need to refract the light as much. They change to interpret the world around you. When you look at something up close, all of a sudden those muscles have to contract to change the shape of the lens so that you can perceive that light correctly or clearly. Everything's a fucking movement, man.
Yeah. That's very cool. No, I mean, it's really cool to think about life in those
that's what
terms.
we're born for, right? To experience the earth in that way. But modernity has made it so some people don't do that anymore, and people like you have to coax them out into the fucking wilderness to reconnect with the thing that God made us able to do. Correct?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, people like me or you guys don't have to. I do it out of selfishly, really.
Right.
You know, the survival of you and the rest of the world is the survival of me.
Right.
We're all in this thing together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
you do this because you feel called to help people. Well, you say selfishly, but
It's like eating the red pill or blue pill or whatever color that pill is. Like once you eat the pill, you can't go back.
Yeah.
You know, once you see the effects of people that are stuck inside of their air-conditioned room staring into their Instagram or Facebook or Netflix or whatever and kind of living this artificial life, eventually that it's like you could describe that as like spending on a credit card in a way. Every time you're looking at nature on a screen, it's almost like that's like credit card nature. Every time you get to go outside and actually like climb a tree, that's like you're putting money back into the bank.
Yeah.
So are those eye muscles that you were just describing, are those working when you're looking at screens?
Of course. Yeah. So anytime you're looking at something close up, so it's that light, it needs to, for it to come into your eyes, right? It needs to kind of come in at an angle. So your eyes are this one point, you're taking in the whole room. So it'll kind of come in at this angle. For that light to be actually interpreted for your brain, your body to receive that signal, you have to change that angle so it kind of comes in straight. When light's coming from a distance, now it's not coming in as sharp of an angle, so now your eyes need to change less to receive that light. So when you look out in a distance, I know that you guys can feel this or have noticed this. What's one of the most like relaxing things you can do? It's look out into a horizon. Right? That's why you want to have your office near a window, right? Because it's a muscular relaxation. If you're contracted anywhere in your body, then you're contracted everywhere in your body. It creates a stimulus throughout the whole system. There's a 50-cent word called irradiation for that. And essentially, it's like the tighter you squeeze onto something, the more you'll feel that contraction move through the rest of your body. People can do that at home. You know, squeeze your hand a little bit, you'll feel it into like your wrist. Squeeze it more, you'll feel it up into the shoulder. Squeeze it like a lot, you feel it into your genitals.
Yeah, for sure.
Same thing with the eyes. Squeeze your eyes a lot, your whole body goes, ooh,
Yeah.
and now you're in a contracted state, and people think you're a dickhead, and you think people are bitches.
Well, we were talking about that. We were talking about that on the way over in the car because there's a lot of really shitty drivers out there, and people are distracted, they're confused, they're angry at the wheel, they're looking at their phone, they're pissed off at people behind them. Some guy rolled up to me the other day and or acted as if he was reaching to pull a gun out and shoot me because I flipped him off because he was fucking riding my ass like a dickhead, you know? So there's a lot of tension, the likes of which you're describing, squeezing onto the wheel or squinting your eyes or getting pissed off about shit. And I don't know, man. It sounds like everybody needs to just look off into the horizon.
It's a start.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. And exploring, so if you get stuck in that, so that eye thing is a repetitive motion, right? So 90% of, I think, all of China, a lot of China specifically, Eastern Asia in general is becoming people are becoming myopic, like they're becoming nearsighted, you know, because they're being stuck staring into these screens.
Right.
You know, and it's also a lot of folks are experiencing, you know, depression and suicide and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, so as we constrict and get tighter, our nervous system, our emotional body, our emotional self, it also constricts and gets tighter. It's the same thing when you're around someone that you don't want to be around per se. I feel this. I bet you guys feel this too. Anybody that's sensitive, you know, sensitive in quotations listening feels this. You kind of contract a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't know what it was about that guy, but he made all my sphincters like tighten
Right.
up as soon as he walked in the room.
All of my sphincters.
All of this. We have a lot more sphincters than just the anus. You got sphincters all throughout throughout your intestines and all that stuff.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Sphincters. Yeah.
Well,
Sphincters isn't as vulgar a word as we think it. We just think of the puckered up anus.
I just thought that was the exit point.
Well, on a quantum level, I mean, our cells, our particles are sort of bouncing off each other at all times.
Yeah, on a bacterial level as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Now something, I'm exploring this myself, and I think I haven't totally, fully articulated this idea, but raising your level of consciousness through physical movement, and I think it's all the things that you were just talking about, expressing various, just even looking off into the horizon, the effect that has in your entire body. And it feels like that's very much what you are sort of at the core of your methodology is what you're kind of getting at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting outside of the box.
Didgeridoos
The
on,
didge.
on a wobble board.
Gotcha.
I love that. I want to try that.
What else
man.
would you do?
Yeah, no, I love that.
YOLO.
I think it's awesome. But as football players or as athletes in corporate sports, we get so locked into just the brutality of movement and beating the shit out of ourselves and others, and it becomes, you lose sight of how much there is to find in yourself through the act of sport, through the act of physical movement and running, jumping, lifting, being together, fighting on a team, for a common cause. I think that, these things really help us experience more of our humanity.
Yeah, I was just pondering on this this week. I've been really hot and bothered about this idea that you're talking about, and we tend to treat our bodies like slaves. We like whip them. If you have like the vision of like, the slaves under the boat, and they're kind of rowing the boat, and they're like whipping them, like, go more, more. We're going into battle.
Yeah,
shut up.
Yeah,
go. We don't have that relationship of like, what about just nurturing?
Yeah.
What about having a moment of like seeing your fitness, seeing your exercise as being something more of like, as I'm picking up that, the barbell or doing a deadlift or doing a whatever it is, yoga or dance or, what have you, it's almost like I'm massaging my tissue as well. As, it's not just it's a sword and I'm putting it into the fire, and it doesn't always need to be that. That's just one kind of like didactic tool. Metaphor that we use. Yeah. But there's also like, what about a flower? What about like cultivating a plant or an orchid? You're that too, right?
Yeah.
Right? You're a sword and you're metal.
Yeah.
You're also a fucking orchid.
Right.
So whatever perception that you want to have on it, that will start to impact the way that you treat yourself. So what you do with the flowers, you give it water. You play your freaking guitar around or put some Bob Marley on or classical music.
Yeah.
That's real stuff. They've been shown to respond better to classical music, I think specifically.
Yeah.
If you guys have show notes, you can include some of the studies around that. But plants respond to music.
Yeah.
And they respond to the intent of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You come in a room and break their twigs and treat them like a cunt. They feel that and they remember you.
Yeah.
And that sounds like some crazy stuff, but there's real science backing that.
Absolutely. Talking to plants, speaking to them nurturingly.
Yeah, we're all in the soup together. Morphic resonance. Rupert Sheldrake talks about these things. We're all kind of interacting together.
Right.
There's also an instinctual muscle memory around battle, violence, war, and survival that cannot be ignored no matter how much you want to picture yourself being a flower. There are a lot of threats around us at all times that we have to tense up and prepare for battle. I mean, we live in this kind of insulated world here where we feel that we are protected. But in many ways, we have to gear ourselves up for a fight.
What's a tree go through? What about when a hurricane comes through and a tree has to withstand that? Right. Absolutely. It's a fucking battle. It's real.
The tree's not moving. And the tree doesn't have to pay taxes.
That's true, but it's just a metaphor, But that movement, in reality, the tree is moving, So this is stuff that's a little bit outside of like my personal depth. But that nervous system of the forest is all connected through this stuff called mycelium.
Right.
So there's this fungal connection through that whole entire forest. And that's all movement. When one tree is experiencing a drought or some type of like parasites affecting them, the other trees will come through and actually add, through that information that's going through that nervous system, they'll give them more of what they need. This is not my expertise. But just because something doesn't have legs and knee joints and like ambulates, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not responding. Its movement is just maybe more from like a chemical movement.
It's like a community, you were saying, like the other trees around them pick them up and help them.
Yeah, man.
Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like a team.
Like a team.
A forest is a team of trees.
What the hell are people?
Yeah.
A team of people.
That's the only reason we've made it to where we are, is because we're a team.
Right.
We communicate, and we have language, and we have cell phones. And we say, okay, you do this, you do this, you do that. All right, now we're going to communicate at another level. I'm going to call China. I want to make you 6,000, of this thing, and then send it over to us. And now we're starting to come to this like more, united model. Then, evolution it really speeds up at that point. When you create that disconnection, evolution kind of, I don't know if it stops, but it certainly slows down.
Well, in that book, Tribe, have you read it?
Yeah. I haven't read all of it, honestly.
But, he talks about how we evolved from, probably a group of hominids that worked incredibly close together, and their survival was dependent on each other, from maximizing their hunting success to, being able to share responsibilities throughout the tribe to collect food and water and resources for everyone and share that equally, and we've evolved from that. Now, the problem with technology, with phones, with social media and all this bullshit we have to distract ourselves, there is a disconnect happening, and one of his theories is that there was so much output of oxytocin, the bonding molecule, of course, I'm sure you know about that, right? That, everyone was willing to essentially die for the greater good of the tribe. That's how tightly knit it was. And thinking just to your point, how, we've gotten to this point because of that, through our evolution. I think that's just,
So are we evolving to the point where we will no longer need to prepare for war, to be physical, not physical, but to fight?
I think we have an opportunity to evolve out of that, to evolve into a more collaborative, less competitive mode of being. What do you think about that, Aaron?
I think the fight, oftentimes at a more up close, myopic level, can appear to be like a bad thing. And then when you expand out, oftentimes that skirmish is just a part of the greater good. So seems like fighting and battle and all that stuff. It's been, I don't know what the value is exactly, but I have a feeling that it could be kind of associated. Look at your immune system and white blood cells and all that. There's battle happening inside of us all the time. The macrophages is just it's like, no, don't kill him, don't hurt him.
Right.
So if you look at that at a real close up level, you could say no, I just peace, everything, love.
Right.
And then you die.
Yeah.
You get cancer.
For sure.
So it's those battles, and that's like Anti-Fragile is another good reference in relation to this specific conversation. If we have Nassim Taleb is the writer of that. But if we have these little skirmishes, then that prevents the grander nuclear explosion from happening. So if we have ongoing tiny skirmishes, someone gets pissed off, you guys are pissed off at each other, he's not doing the sound right, you keep saying airy-fairy stuff, you're to this, and you're like, you kind of, it piles up, everyone's personalities kind of pile up, and then eventually it's like, we're breaking up, I'm over it. Or you guys on a regular basis, you kind of
fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah, people say
somebody
that
fucking throws a bottle at me, you're like, all right, we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah.
As
Right.
opposed to the band breaking up, someone just hucked a bottle at my head because I talked too much or too little or whatever. And now we sort that out.
people who cuss are healthier. I read that. People
Really?
who use profanity, yeah.
I use a lot of it.
Fuck yeah, you do. Fucking shit, man.
Fucking A.
If you want to be healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to the same point you're making about keeping shit bottled up, or the confrontation I had with a gentleman in the car who faked like he was going to pull out a gun and shoot me.
Right.
Well, that was good for both of us.
Maybe. I think it's always the middle path, right?
No, I actually tried to keep a cool head there. I was like, man, you backed up. I have no problem with you, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with anything, if your sphincters are too tight to let out a profane word, that's probably an issue. But if you're just cocking and fucking and shitting and it's like, then it's just maybe it would serve you to read more books.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Different books.
Expand your vocabulary.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's the big thing when profane language ends up being just like a filler. To me, that feels like it's like a brain fart. It feels like I'm mentally breathing in like pollution or something. But if you use your cuss language, whatever, as like a sword,
yeah.
Sometimes a good fuck is like, whoo.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins is good about this.
Yeah.
He really intentionally uses swear words.
Yeah.
And that's just to take people out of that, shake them up a little bit.
Yeah.
You're not expecting me to say, fucking look at me.
Right.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's recognizing that if anything, it's like the quantity versus quality thing. It's like as you go too big with anything, then it starts to lose its power.
Yeah.
We had a counselor in elementary school named Mr. Berta, and he was. I got in trouble a lot when I was a kid, so I had to go see Mr. Berta a lot. And every once in a while, he'd say shit, and it was like the coolest thing. And when he would say that, I would feel like, wow, I'm his contemporary, and we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It had the same effect. It was powerful. Mr. Berta was no Tony Robbins, but he was a good man.
But that helped you as a youngster relate to him.
Yeah, it did.
And buy into what he was talking about.
Yeah. Yep. And my mom never, ever swears. I mean, she's has a very polite mouth. But one time, like, every once in a while she drops a shit. But like when I was a kid, I slammed my finger in the door one time, and I was like, "Oh, gosh." She's like, "It's okay. You can say shit."
Oh, good.
Like, shit.
That's legit.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
I love
awesome.
that,
Good.
dude.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I like it. I oftentimes will. Everybody kind of has like their crutch of what they lean on, and oftentimes I'll lean more on like intellectual jargon. For whatever reason, it like inflates my ego in somewhere. It makes me feel protected. It's like,
Sure.
well, I read books.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
So in a moment of exasperation, when one person would typically say "fuck," you say
Some
mitochondria or
polysyllabic
something.
bullshit. Yeah. But so everybody has their thing. It could be like muscles is their thing, or it could be like I snap. I'll go fucking crazy. That's a protective mechanism. Like, just so you know, like I might go crazy if you push the wrong buttons. That's really fear based, I think.
Yeah.
That's you holding that, like, just so you know, motherfucker.
Yeah.
But we all have our different masks.
Absolutely.
But I'll use cuss language. What do you say? Swear words, profanity. What's the best way to
Curse
say that?
words.
I'm like
Potato,
stumbling
potato.
around
Yeah,
that.
whatever.
Yeah.
It feels so I don't know. I feel like British or something when I say profanity.
Yeah.
Try to try to keep it somewhat simple. But I will intentionally use that to lighten the mood up with things, especially with like hosting the podcast. I know exactly when I'm swearing. Like I'll intentionally input swear word here because I feel like the conversation is getting a little bit too uptight.
Yeah.
It softens. It puts the other place, and I was like, oh, this is kind of like a cussing podcast. All right.
Yeah. Right.
We'll ease it up a little bit.
Yeah. We do a lot of speaking, around cannabis and sports.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear your own personal thoughts on it, but on that point, when I'm talking about cannabis, I will do the same thing, very intentionally throw in a fuck or a shit or whatever it might be, and that really like jolts the audience into engagement. I find, when you're talking about something, and we use very specific language as we try to raise the level of consciousness around these plant medicines and these things that have been so demonized and stigmatized throughout our history that, it's always cannabis and not weed. And so to throw in a fuck or a shit really opens up, it brings people back into the conversation. This isn't a totally, white collared thing. This is very, real and open, and let's have a conversation about it.
I tend to veer on the other end with talking about psychedelics and pot or whatever, of like, in those situations, then I become more vigilant of my language and trying to sound more technical, actually. Sure. Because it's been cloaked in stoner, bullshit. Just eating your microwave, whatever. What are those called?
TV
like
dinners.
hot pockets or whatever. Bullshit. Yeah. And just kind of wasting your life away.
Yeah.
And so when I go into that, I put on that cap.
Yeah.
For me personally, it doesn't need to be right or wrong.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden I sharpen the language up.
Yeah.
Because it's always that yin yang thing. It's always
absolutely.
that balance of like, okay, this is one of those kind of blurry taboo subjects.
Yeah.
You said yin yang. I've always heard it as yin yang.
Oh, either or. Potato, potato.
Okay,
That's
cool.
very good.
'Cause I
You
just
said.
want to clarify that.
Yeah.
There's a new pronunciation.
Yang is what I meant to say. I might have said you like young. I'm not sure.
The long A.
Yeah.
Young.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I totally agree. The more specific, the more technical you can get, talking about the endocannabinoid system, how cannabis affects our bodies, all that stuff. I think it's super important to, in changing that dialogue, to have that very specific language.
There's also something to be real with it, though, as well.
Sure.
Because there's some people that can use the cannabinoid language.
Yeah.
And they really know what they're talking about. Like, that's what they're like, I'm a legitimate scientist, motherfucker. Like, this is my shit.
Yeah.
And I'm a really go down that. Like, those are the people that I really love as far as, like, my platform, those are the people that usually I will have that conversation with more.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of the conversation is I'm not so science-based with it, but I do feel.
Yeah.
So if you start kind of mixing that sensation of what you actually feel and trying just put a helmet of sciencey polysyllabic words on it, that feels fake too. I think that both have, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
well,
definitely.
It's a fine line that we've discovered when we go to these conferences and stuff. They don't want the football player giving them a scientific dissertation about it. What they want to know is about our pain, our experience.
That's it.
Taking pills versus cannabis, and they want us to speak from the heart, and that's why a well-timed fuck does well, because it feels
for
like
you guys.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But the more we learn about this plant, the more we do feel, Eben especially, feels comfortable and knowledgeable sharing these kinds of things he's learned.
Yeah.
But we didn't go to school for it. We're learning on the fly. But there's a lot of information to be learned out there, and we don't know everything about cannabis yet. It's still being researched. What do you feel about cannabis as far as healing, your practices, your life, general health and well-being?
Do you guys already know my thoughts on cannabis at all, or is
No.
this like
No.
total not sure?
No, yeah.
So I might not even smoke pot. You have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
idea.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I think pot's great. Pot, that's kind of like a low.
Yeah,
low
we don't
name
really
for it,
say pot,
But you can
that's
say whatever
cool.
you want.
Yeah, you call it whatever you want, man.
Yeah, I like saying pot specifically because exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Whereas like it's cannabis, right?
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Like fucking call it weed, relax.
Yeah, exactly.
Call it whatever you want.
Right.
Whatever feels good for you.
Yeah.
So THC, tetrahydrocannabinol or whatever.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. There we go. I don't know what that represents, but I'll take
It's a
it.
reggae beat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's frantically finding a reggae beat.
Yeah.
I find it to be really great with having a pattern reset. So we end up getting really stuck in, just what we think we're supposed to do and who we think we're supposed to be and all the stuff that we think we're supposed to be doing all the time. And I find pot or the array of plant remedies out there to be very nice to kind of pull you out of the tunnel for a little bit, of what you think is supposed to be happening in this world. And I find it really helpful with my movement practice. So I will use a
Are you high right
vaporizer.
now?
Man, good question. I had some coca leaf. Quite a bit of coca leaf this morning, actually.
Quite a bit.
That's cool.
I can tell, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, coca leaf's good.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, I use that all throughout South America. Actually, it's good for acclimatization.
Yeah.
It's just in the
Helpful to get
powdered
in the blood.
form, like the. Yeah.
We had some of that with Karina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, it's all just tools, man.
Yeah.
Everybody's just gotta relax.
Right.
Like it's the same thing with sexuality. It's the same thing with any taboo subject. The more you shuffle it under the rug and don't communicate about it,
Right.
the more just immature and dark it becomes.
Right.
Or more immature you become and that topic becomes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it has this fiery stigma around it. It's red and it's sexy, because it's been stashed away.
Yeah.
Or it mutates.
Right.
If we can just be goddamn adults and
Yeah.
communicate and realize like anything that's on the table, a lot of those things, they probably have at some point, they have value.
Yeah.
There's no one substance, food, person, tool that is just always the tool.
Right.
And so I see cannabis as just being one of those things that it's like, I keep it on the table. I always have it in the medicine cabinet, but I'm not like smoking weed all day.
Right.
It'll be like usually nighttime around like after 9, like everything's done. The house is clean. I've swept everything, light some candles.
Nice.
Like I try to really be pretty ceremonial about it, but I try to be ceremonial about a lot of things.
But then you use it before your movements, before your movement
Not always, but I
practice.
have.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So the brain fog thing that some people experience with cannabis, I find that if I surf or I like train,
Yeah.
then that's not as much.
Yeah.
But even still, I feel a little bit stickier in my mind if I smoke during the day, personally.
yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, it's a nighttime thing.
For sure.
And you don't wake up in the morning with that brain fog if you smoke at night?
I don't notice it that much. No, maybe I think for me the bigger thing is what and how much did I eat and how long before bed before bed did I eat. That to me is the highest contributing factor to brain fog.
Yeah, that's something I've been experimenting with is the eating before bed.
Yeah.
And how that makes me feel the next day.
It's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to it. It's something that I'm working on unwinding, but a lot of times I'll feel like there's moments where it's like 11:30 and you're like, just something's churning. You're like, I'm just gonna go eat some nuts and a banana, and then like you don't feel as good, but you fall asleep.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And do you think that kind of stimulation of your appetite at that time has anything to do with the cannabis you smoked 2 hours prior?
No, I don't personally. It'll be with weed, without weed, whatever. It's more of a I think it's more of a mental thing.
Do you think it's more of an enticing idea when you're high?
No, I'm the opposite with food when I'm high, actually. Yeah, the whole idea of like appetite. Munchies is I have the total inverse situation going. I usually end up reverting to like self-loathing because I ate too much when I get high, because then I can feel this big bolus of food in my body. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
What have I done to myself?
Yeah,
I'm such
absolutely.
a dickhead.
I feel the same.
Why do I keep doing that?
What is your eating like? Just curious. Well, we've got about 5 minutes to get you out of here.
I eat an excessive amount of butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I eat like a freak ton of fat.
Straight up fucking.
Are you keto?
Stuff. No. I got a 800 little keto breath machine thing at my house that I never use. No, I'm not dogmatic about. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say you're not dogmatic about anything because then that like becomes your dogma almost. Right. But there's not a lot of things that I'm dogmatic about. Nutrition falls into that category. I think every day it's like feeling what you're feeling, what feels good.
Yeah.
And I notice that the trend is I feel more satiated when I get enough fat and protein. Yeah. And so that's something that if I had like a big salad with some fish and a bunch of different vegetables, I try to be diverse with the veggies.
Yeah.
Try to eat little fish as opposed to big fish. I'm only eating like sharks or dolphins or ahi or anything like that.
Sardines.
Why is
Sardines
that?
and anchovies, heavy metals. So you want a fish to be as close to the source as possible. The source being like eating little algae and all like the little phyto tiny stuff off the. And then from there you could be like, well, why not just eat kelp? I think eating seaweed and all that stuff is really valuable. As it gets further away from the ground, all of a sudden it starts aggregating more shit, and the shit in this case ends up being like heavy metals like mercury. Tony Robbins almost died from it.
Oh
wow!
Maybe not
so did
almost
Jeremy.
died, but he was
Jeremy
really
Piven.
He was really hurt.
Remember that Jeremy Piven had a mercury scare.
Yeah, a lot of folks.
Yeah,
sushi's like it's fun, it's sexy, it's like a celebration,
right?
And it's like and it feels healthy, but you don't realize some of the tiny little bits that are in that stuff. You really got to look at the source of the sushi, the source of the food. It's not about what you eat; it's about what you ate.
Powerful, dude.
Nice. I like that. What you eat? I'm on a seaweed diet myself.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not. When I see weed, I smoke it.
Oh, good. I'm not joking, but here's the punchline.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it, man.
Hey, man, that's how we do it.
Yeah.
I always keep a couple in my quiver so I can pull them out.
Yeah, you never know.
When someone brings up something like that.
You never know.
Yeah. I love it, man. Well, where can people find you as we wrap this thing up?
Well, the aligntherapy.com, that's the hub of all the parts. Everything stems off of that guy. If people have interest in, we talked about moving a little bit. There's a 5-day movement challenge on there that's pretty fun and gets into all the basic nitty-gritty fundamental principles of everything you need to move well on a momentary basis. So that's some people can start. Align Podcast, all the social medias, Align Podcast.
Awesome. That's
pretty much it.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, we really appreciated having you here, man.
We really did. Yeah,
it was good times.
And
appreciate you guys.
We have a message to deliver to you.
Hit me.
And Jed, I need you to keep doing what you're doing right now.
Oh.
Because I feel that beat coming. Everybody did a really good job at the pod. Aaron, you did a real good job on the pod.
Great job on the pod, brother.
You guys did a great job on the pod.
Jed, you did a really good job on the pod.
Yeah, you did, Jed.
And Eben, you did a really good job on the pod, yeah, everybody did a really good job on the pod. Said everybody did a really good job on the pod, yeah.
Nathan did a really good job on the pod.
Thank you, Eben. Hey, Gandalf, you did a really good job on the pod.
Great job, baby.
On the pod, yeah. Everybody did a
really good job on the pod. Hey, people. Subscribe and review on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or TuneIn. Send us your stories at Twitter @MindfulPod, Facebook @Mindful Warrior Podcast, Instagram @Mindful Warrior Podcast. You can send us an email at mindfulwarriorpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our organization, Athletes for Care, at athletesforcare.org. Nathan wrote a couple of books.
Check them out.
Great books. Slow Getting Up in Fantasy, man. We love you guys. Check us out on our website at mindfulwarriorpodcast.com. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank
Love
you.
y'all.
See you next time.